Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's digital event. I'm Sam Anderson. I'll be giving a proper introduction in just a moment, but I want to welcome you to the Unreal Engine Basics Create, Build, and Explore digital event with ArchVision, where I will be diving into the basics of Unreal Engine and teaching you how to get started in Unreal Engine. I am joined by Corey and Kelsey today. They will be on the back end of stuff. This is the ArchVision team. They are here to help answer any questions that you may have, and they are going to be helping me gather any of those questions that I will be addressing at the end. So once again, I'm Sam Anderson. I'm a technical marketing consultant for ArchVision, and I am very happy to be here to teach Unreal Engine to you. So I am the founder of Studio Ladder, where I produce architectural visualizations as well as do trainings. So my background is in architecture. I was an architectural visualization specialist at Shop Architects for many years and started diving into real-time rendering engines such as Unreal Engine and Unity and understanding how we can use those tools to better visualize some of our projects in-house. Since then, I joined Epic Games for about 3 years, where I was using my skill level and talking with architects to help architects understand how they can use Unreal Engine, as well as developing marketing materials for Epic. So since then, I have gone on my own, where I do get to create more architectural visualizations for me. I consult and I train, and I get to work with ArchVision at these digital events, which is why I'm here today. So what you're seeing on the screen are some of the projects that I've worked on inside of Unreal Engine and Twinmotion. Mostly the ones that you're seeing on the screen are Unreal Engine. There are some really wonderful benefits of using Unreal Engine that I'll describe here in a moment, but I just wanted to give you some of the visuals that are possible with Unreal Engine. And as I'm talking about the program itself, I'll dive into how those things are possible. So throughout the day today, we are going to do as much as we can in such a short time. So this is going to be about an hour long. The last 5 to 10 minutes will be the question and answer portion. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If we have some downtime in between, I'll take a look at them and try to address them as best as I can. If I can't, I'll get to them at the very end. So we have our introduction, which we are doing today. And I'm going to spend some time talking about why ArchVision, why Unreal Engine. There's so many different tools out there. What are the pros and cons of using, each company's tool sets? Now, I will dive into the very basics to Unreal Engine. So this is going to be for anyone who has never really played around with Unreal Engine. Of course, if you have and you just kind of want to see how someone else works through Unreal Engine, please feel free to stay. But this will be recorded, and so the purpose of this is that you can sit here today, learn how I'm doing this, and then if you need to, we'll have the video out, and you'll be able to explore it for yourself and be able to revisit and hopefully follow along. So once we understand the user interface and how Unreal Engine works, we will start to build out an environment. We will take a look at modeling tools as well. And a lot of this stuff is going to be focused around AEC workflows. So I will be talking about how I like to bring those architectural projects in and some use cases and benefits for why you might want to start with a certain template or which file formats you want to bring in. And then at the end, as I mentioned, we'll end with that Q&A. But first, let's take a step back and talk about why ArchVision. So ArchVision is a reseller of Unreal Engine as well as Twinmotion. And one of my favorite things about ArchVision is it's truly a one-stop shop for a lot of these 3D visualization tools and even modeling tools. So if you are working on a team and using a lot of different tool sets, it can be a little overwhelming to keep track of everything and understand, where do you go for support for each of these different tools. Then with ArchVision, you have the ability to have them be the reseller for many of the different tools that you're using in your workflows. And so we are here to help you and assist you. We have access to a lot of different experts. So I'll be the expert on the Unreal Engine and Twinmotion side and can provide any answers that I can to any questions that you may have as you're working. Now, why Unreal Engine? So as we mentioned, there are a lot of different tools. You probably have seen many different visualization workflows out there, and I do truly believe that there is a use case for each one. I like to work in Unreal Engine for many reasons, but I'll talk a lot about some of the reasons why I choose Unreal Engine for specific projects. And a lot of that is going to be to take advantage of the bespoke use cases of Unreal Engine. So if I am trying to visualize a project really quickly, just for a competition or something, that have a very short timeline, I will probably use a different user-friendly visualization tool such as TrueMotion, Inkscape, Lumion. There's a lot of different options there. And then if there is a need for a super hyperreal project that I have a longer lead time for, that I can start to really personalize or bring to life, make immersive, then I like to use Unreal Engine. So one of the things with Unreal Engine is I like to say, if you have an idea or a vision for a project in Unreal Engine, you'll most likely be able to get there. It might just take a little bit more time to develop it, as there is a little bit more of a learning curve. Now, one thing that I have noticed working with a lot of 3D artists in Unreal Engine is everyone kind of has their different expertise. So don't be alarmed if you're diving in and it feels overwhelming at times. We've all been there. Even for myself, I have some different features that I am focused on and I have the expertise for. And then if it starts to move into more of a programming side, then I would pass it off to another 3D artist to take that on. But this can be very helpful for you, even if you are starting to build an Unreal Engine team, to kind of understand, are you building teams that are mostly generalists, or do you want teams that are a little more specified? So that can help you kind of understand that everyone may not all be generalists. Sometimes it can be helpful to have the expertise in those different sections of Unreal Engine. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and just take a look at some of the features of Unreal Engine here. So I do have this Unreal Engine 5.4 highlights, and one of the things that I talked about was making it immersive and taking it to the next level. And so this animation gameplay is one of those examples in which you could have these centering renderings and then have control of characters moving throughout the space. So Unreal Engine is the engine that is built for many games that are used to build many games such as Fortnite. And it's now being used for film, for automotive, fashion, and more. So architecture is a part of that, those different use cases. And I think it's really cool because it allows architects to be able to have access to these tools that developers are making and problem solving. And so it has, a big team behind the development, and increasingly having updates for the visuals, which is awesome. So you're seeing some of that here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the demo. As I mentioned, this is going to be from the very, very start. So thank you so much for taking your time to be with us. Let's go ahead and just get started so we can fill up our time as best as we can. So to get started, I'm actually going to pull up this browser. So if you type in download Unreal Engine into the browser, you'll pop up with a web page here, and you'll notice that there's the ability to download a launcher. So this could be a little confusing if you are downloading for the first time. So essentially what this launcher is going to be is it's going to have all of the different tools that Epic Games offers. So this is the very first step. You will need a Epic Games account in order to get this. So I just want to make this clear for anyone who is wanting to just download Unreal Engine. There's this first step with downloading the launcher first. So once you have the launcher downloaded, you can then go ahead and open up the Epic Games launcher. The very first time you open it up, it might be the Epic Games Store. This is going to give you the latest news for Epic Games and might have some of the more gaming content in it. But don't worry, on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is the Unreal Engine tab here that you can select. Now, once this is selected, you will see that you have some content here that you can see for keeping up with the latest news and information that Epic has. But if you go all the way up to the top, you'll see we have a couple of different options here. And so this is what I mentioned with the launcher. It actually is giving you access to a lot of these tools, and then you can choose to download which ones are going to be working for you. So we will be talking about Unreal Engine. And in order to get there, I'm actually going to go over to this library tab. And in this library tab, you'll see that we have all of our engine versions here. So right now I have, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and essentially these are the latest updates for Unreal Engine. I do like to keep a few of the older ones as I have some of my projects in there, and then I can always export some of the projects that I've developed in 5.3 into a newer version. Now, recently, Unreal Engine 5.5 preview came out. What this preview means is that you are able to work and use the latest tools, but it's not exactly production ready. So I would say if you are working on a very long lead project that you're just getting started with, you would kind of want to understand, like, are you starting at 5.4 or going to go to 5.5? Since that is not production ready, I'd almost recommend using 5.4 if it's going to be a long lead and you want to make sure that nothing is going to break in the next couple of months. So that's my point of view, but feel free to explore that if you'd like. Down at the bottom will be all of your projects that you've created. So this is essentially your library of all your projects. And for now, I am actually going to go ahead and work with 5.4.4 since that one is the in production ready engine. So I'm going to launch this, but if you do not have this on your computer, you can always select this plus button and it's going to pop up with a thumbnail. And using this drop-down button is going to allow you to select the latest version. So for now, I have everything downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and launch Unreal Engine. And while this is popping up, I do want to note that you'll see here that you have access to Twinmotion and Reality Capture as well. If you have not explored those tools, what's great about this launcher is you have the ability to pull that up and take a look at some of those tools as they fit in and understand how they can fit in with your Unreal Engine. So I'll go ahead and try to pull that up right here once more while the Unreal Engine is opening. And we can take a look at just some of the base understanding of Twinmotion. So for anyone, as I'm working here, if you're like, this is a lot, I want to kind of start off with something a little bit simpler, then Twinmotion might be the tool for you. It is a very user-friendly tool made by architects for architects, and it's since evolved to be used inside of film and set design and automotive use cases, but essentially it allows you to create storytelling very easily. So you can still create images, videos, VR, 360 panoramas, and what it's doing is it's actually built on top of Unreal Engine or inside of Unreal Engine. So you're using the tools and features and benefits of Unreal Engine, but in a way that's a little bit easier. So this is one option for you. And then you also have the ability to use Reality Capture. This is going to be the photogrammetry tool inside of Epic Games, allowing you to bring real world landscapes into 3D. So with that, I think I have my Unreal Engine here open. Perfect. So this is the Unreal project browser. You'll notice that it once again has a library of all of the projects that I've started already. But on the left-hand side, I'm going to click through some of these thumbnails, and these are going to be templates that have been set up to make things a little bit easier when you're getting started. So I typically like to start with the architecture templates. Now there's a few here, so if you know the end deliverable, then you might want to choose one of these templates based on that. So if you're working in AR, you have a template for that. If you want to work with multiple people inside of one Unreal Engine, then you are able to use a cloud viewer. So that's one of the benefits that comes with Unreal Engine that isn't available in Twinmotion, for example. So with Unreal Engine, you're able to set it up so you can have multiple people occupying the space at once. Now, this design configurator is going to be great if you're wanting to have an experience where people can switch different materials or play around with the sun. And so this is going to have some setup for you that is ready to go. I actually like to start with this ArchViz template. This is a template that developers worked on with some tools ready and available for architecture visualization specialists so that they can kind of get into it, learn a little bit, and then use some of the tools that they've set up and have it as easy access. So in order to do this, you can name your project on the bottom right left-hand side. I'll just put delete me for now so I can stay organized later. So for now, I'm just going to name the project. Hopefully you'll have a better name for it. But I'm going to go ahead and open this up here, and then we will take a look at the template. Now, you'll notice that whenever I'm opening up Unreal Engine, it has this screen that's kind of telling me what it's doing. So sometimes when you're opening up a project for the first time, it may take a little bit of time what it's doing is it's creating all of these folders that have all of the content of this project in there, and making sure that that all stays organized. So that is what's happening in the back end. Now, you'll see here that the project is open. We've got a nice little structure in here. We've got a background of a cityscape. We've got some water in here as well. And then we also have some text. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to talk about the user interface, and then I will dive into some of the text that's on the screen. So here on the screen, we have our Unreal Engine options here at the top. This is going to be very similar to a lot of other programs that you're working with. I do like to tell people that it can be helpful to spend some time actually just looking at the options that you have here. This can be a source of inspiration for someone who's coming from a different tool or visualization tool to understand what things are possible. For instance, here you can debug and profile your project. You can start to look at some of the different aspects inside of Unreal Engine. And this one's going to be a little more expert level, but still have access to a lot of these. And this goes for the window as well. So you'll see kind of all of the different elements that we have here. If you have opened up Unreal Engine prior to this and want to follow along with me, you can always go to this load layout and select default editor layout. That's essentially going to make sure that all of your windows here are similar to mine. I know sometimes that when I'm working, I pull stuff and they get lost, and so that can be a nice way to kind of refresh your window layout if you'd like. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these features. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this level. So whenever you open up a template, it does have a level applied to it. A level is going to be the starting point for a project. It can be similar to a scene. So if you wanted to have different levels or different scenes inside your project, you are able to. So I'm going to save this current level as, and I'm going to save or name it demo. So this way I can make changes inside of this demo level, but I can always go back to this main template level if needed. So essentially, this can be a great way for you to make sure that you can always go back to a different process of or a different part of the level to make sure that you're getting a fresh clean start if needed. I'll go ahead and hit save here. And it's hard, maybe hard to see because we're keeping it the same, but here in this top hand side, you'll see that we have the name demo at the top. Now, taking a look at the next toolbar, we have some additional tools here that we can take advantage of. So if you hit the selection mode, you'll see we have some landscape, foliage, modeling tools, a lot of different elements here. So we will come back to these tools in just a moment once we get through the user interface. Now here in this next toolbar, we have this Get Content button. Now this is going to be the way that you are importing stuff or project into your Unreal Engine project. So you'll see here that you have the ability to import content. So this is going to let you organize it. You can select where you want to place the content that you're bringing in and then find it on your computer. Now, this is going to be the way that you can bring in a lot of file formats. So here, if I click on this file formats, you'll see you can bring in FBX, you can bring in lighter point clouds. There are a ton of different options here for things that you can bring in. Now, one of the things that is recommended for bringing in architectural or CAD data is actually using a Datasmith import. So Datasmith is developed by the Epic Games team, and what it does is it packages your CAD programs in a way that makes it easy to read for Unreal Engine. So essentially, it's making sure that the textures come in nicely and that the intention that you've put in behind building out your CAD program are coming in nicely inside of Unreal Engine. So with this, you have two different options. You have a file import as well as a direct link import. And so in order to talk a little bit about the differences, the file import is going to be great if someone else is working on a project, whether it's Revit or Rhino, and they're just sending you a file export to open up inside of Unreal Engine. This can be very helpful if you have different teams that are working with different files. The direct link import is going to allow you to work with a Revit or Rhino project while you're working inside of Unreal Engine so that you can move stuff around inside of Rhino, and then you're going to see those updates inside of Unreal Engine. So I won't spend a lot of time on that today, but I will just go over to a browser here to show you where to find more information about Datasmith. So I'll go ahead and type in Datasmith here, and you'll see that we have all of the different programs that there are Datasmith plugins for, and you'll be able to download those plugins and then get going. So let's see. I just want to make sure if my audio is bad, please feel free to let me know, and I can try to change things as is. But just want to let you know that I'm here. If you have any questions or can't hear me, then we can address that as well. Okay, so to go back to Unreal Engine, we have our toolbar up at the top. Now, we won't be working through all of these, so don't worry, I'm not going to cover every single button. But essentially, thanks, Matthew. I'm glad audio is working. So essentially here we have some different levels, or this is going to can be confusing because we have the levels that we're working in, and the level sequence is going to be a camera that is connected to that level so that any settings that you have in that level, you can apply a camera sequence to it. So if we have time, I'll cover this, but I just wanted to let you know this is where some of the cinematic elements come in. And then we also have some blueprints. So blueprints are a visual coding tool that's inside of Unreal Engine. I won't be covering a lot of that today, but essentially blueprints are a nice way for someone to dive into Unreal Engine and make it interactive and to be able to control some of the elements inside of Unreal Engine that is more of a gameplay space. So there are many different videos on YouTube with the Epic Games YouTube account if you would like to take a look at that. Now we'll go ahead and dive down a little bit further. So here is our viewport. One thing that I always like to do is to hit this top left-hand button, and I like to make sure that this show frames per second is turned on. Essentially, what this is going to do is it's going to give you a little text here on the right-hand side, and it's just letting you know that this has 60 frames per second, which is great. It's green, letting you know that it's good to go. Once you start to get down to yellow or red, it is a cause for concern for if you're creating an experience where you're moving throughout and you really need some smooth. So I like to have this open so that as I'm working and as I'm importing projects, that you are aware of the performance of their project. Now here you also have the ability to take screenshots, to create bookmarks. So we'll talk about this here later in the demo, but a lot of your access to these tools can be found here. Now, if you're someone who likes to work in a lot of different viewports, we do have the ability to look at the top, the bottom, left, right here. One thing that is nice that I want to point out is some of the camera movements inside of Unreal Engine. So while we're talking about this, you'll see that we have the ability to use your keyboard for some of these elements, but you also can use your mouse. So for anyone who is brand new to Unreal Engine, I want to take just a moment to talk about your mouse movement inside. So when I use the left hand button on my mouse, I can start to hold it down and walk around. So you'll see that I'm moving my camera or my head left to right to be able to look at the different elements inside of Unreal Engine. I can use the scroll button to move forward and back. And then the right hand mouse button is going to allow me to look all around. Now, one of the things that is nice here, that is if you hold down Control on your keyboard, and then you hold down the scroll button, you'll see that a line is popping up. So what this is doing is it's going to allow me to quickly change my viewport. So if I select up, it's going to go to the top view. It can go down, and it's going to go down to the bottom view. So this works for right and left. So for someone who's developing really quickly inside of Unreal Engine, this can be about a couple. And if you just want to go back to the perspective mode again, once again, I'm hitting Control on the keyboard. I'm hitting the scroll button, like pressing down on the scroll button. And I'm going to drag to an angle, and it hits me back into the perspective. So this is just an example of all of the different ways that you can work with Unreal Engine. So you could come up here to the top, select something here. You can use your keyboard, you can use your mouse. And I bring this up because this is essentially a lot of Unreal Engine. So there are a lot of videos, a lot of different ways of working with Unreal Engine. There's no specific right way. There are a lot of different elements that are set up so that you can feel comfortable in using whatever process works for you. So here you also have the ability to open up different cameras. So with your template, there are some cameras that are set up. So those are available to you. One thing I do want to note is that sometimes it can be helpful to create bookmarks or to create scenes or like places in the viewport that you want to jump to very quickly. So one way that you can do that without having to set up a whole camera is if you have something on your viewport that you like. So say I like this place that's coming back to, you can hit Control and a number. So I just hit Control-3 and you'll see that it says Save Bookmark 3. So now as I look around the space, I can hit 3 on my keyboard and it's always going to jump back to this place. So this can be really helpful as you are starting to develop and want to work on certain parts of your project. This will save those bookmarks. So now that we've talked a little bit about the viewport and moving around the viewport, one thing I want to talk about is this lit mode. So this lit mode is going to be where I mostly work. This is going to be the raster real-time rendering view. One thing that you have access to in Unreal Engine is also this patch tracing. So this is going to be similar, especially for someone coming from a visualization specialist background. This is your progressively rendered screen here, and what it's doing is it is calculating all of the different lights inside of the project and making sure it's giving you the improved reflections, refractions, and it's going to be a little higher quality or more accurate rendering. Now you'll see that the water's a little blurry here. There I have my grid on, so you can hit G to toggle that on, and what that's doing is it's turning game mode off and on. But essentially this could be used to produce really high-end renderings. Now this is available to you if you have an RTX graphics card, and something that I use for still renderings. If you're doing an animation in Unreal Engine, it can still be a timely, so I honestly really like to work with the raster rendering. That's this lit rendering here. But one thing that you can do as you're developing is switch between the path tracer and the lit mode to just make sure that you're getting as accurate representation of your project as possible. So I'll go ahead and cover one more thing here, which is this Nanite visualization. So this is a feature of Unreal Engine that takes it to the next level. So as I talked about, there's a lot of easy to use visualization tools. With Unreal Engine, there is a technology called Nanite that is going to allow a lot of the polygons in your project to be utilized in an efficient way. Now, I won't go into exactly how this is working, but you'll see here that I have the Nanite overview. So that's just, you can select by selecting this button at the top left-hand side, going down to Nanite visualization, and then you can select Public View here. And you'll see that you have a lot of different options here. This is going to be great for anyone who is really wanting to debug a project and understand, how can it be as efficient as possible. But essentially, here on the top left-hand side, you'll see that we have triangles. Now, this means that everything that has a triangle has Nanite turned on. Once Nanite is turned on for an element, it is going to triangulate it and can break it down on the back end so that it can store it efficiently in Unreal Engine and render well inside with all of the other different Nanite objects. Now, there are some limitations to this. So with translucent materials, they may not work very well. And so that's something that architects do need to be aware of. But essentially, I like to have everything that can use Nanite, have Nanite in my projects. And then I'll turn off Nanite for those elements. So we can take a look at a moment of where to turn Nanite on and what that looks like. But inside of the architecture template, the Nanite is turned on for all of the objects as is. So that's something that we'll move on to later down the road. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to this lit mode. Now, I'll show here is a little bit more for customizing debugging. So I think for beginners, you don't really need to worry too much about that. On the top right-hand side, you have a lot of different tools here for the way that you control and work with elements inside of the viewport. So you have surface snapping here. You have the ability to set up different configurations for how you want to rotate or scale something. So this essentially allows you to snap to, 10 points down the grid, or if you are, rotating something, furniture that you just want to rotate 90 degrees each side, you can select this 90 degrees, and it's going to make sure that it snaps easy to that 90 degrees. So I'll go ahead and select that back to 10. And so these are, tools here for you that you can play around with and use for when you are working and developing inside of Unreal Engine. Now, on the right-hand side, we have our outliner. So these are two windows that are going to pop up in the default Unreal Engine workflow layout. So we have our outliner here and our details panel. So the outliner is going to have everything that's inside of your viewport. So if I select something here, if I select this object here, it will select on the right-hand side and let you know that this is the building. So with this building, when you have this selected, the details panel will have all of the different properties that you can edit inside of Unreal Engine. So this may look like a lot. Don't be overwhelmed by this. This essentially just means that you have a lot of control over each element inside of Unreal Engine. Now, one of the things that, I most work with and most use is the materials. So one of the nice things about Unreal Engine is that you are able to collapse some of these elements. And one thing that you can do too is save some of the elements that you like to work with. So you'll see that, you have the ability to filter through some of these properties. And then let me go to one to see if I can pull it up here. But you'll see you have these materials. If I want to just select different materials, I can do so here. So there are many different options for working with elements inside of Unreal Engine. Now, up in the outliner, one thing that I want to point out is the post-process volume. So this is something that is included inside of the architectural template. And in order to take a look at it, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. One thing that you can also do, if you are trying to zoom out and find a element inside of your viewport, is selecting the F button. So hitting F on your keyboard is going to essentially focus on the element that you have selected. So once again, if I scroll out here and then hit the F button, it's focusing on an invisible box. So let me turn on G so that you can see that box. So this is that game mode that I'm turning back on. And you'll see that I've been focusing to this little yellow square in box. So a lot of the elements that are inside of the architectural visualization template are here to help you understand how to use some of the features inside of Unreal Engine. So this one that we're taking a look at is going to be a post-process volume. Now, there are currently two different post-process volumes inside of Unreal Engine inside of this project. And essentially, this is allowing the users to be able to pick and edit a specific style that they want to show. So for now, as you see, when I look everywhere, we're getting kind of like a nice, real looking rendering here. If I come into this box here, you'll see that suddenly lines have shown up around the geometry. So this is a tone material, meaning that it, has that outline, which can be really helpful for architects who, want to customize some of their visualizations, or if you aren't ready to have it look so photoreal, like there are some elements that you want to be able to showcase that without, they're not fully designed. And this can be a great use case of working with that. Now, this is set up for you inside of this. So the NPR stands for non-photorealistic. And essentially, this has a post-process volume material that is being applied to the objects in the scene. So you don't have to know all about that, but what you do or can know is that in order to apply this to the entire scene, what you can do is you can type in extent here, and you'll see that you have this infinite extent, and I'll select that. I'll go down to the other post-process volume that was being used, and I can unselect that here. And then now, everywhere I look has that tune material. So one of the things that this can be useful for is if you do have those volumes in box set up, you could have different areas of a project have different stylized techniques. So if you want, if you're inside of a closet, for instance, and it's really dark because there's only one light, you could increase the exposure just in that box, but then have the exposure on the outside be a different exposure. So this gives you a lot of control as you're working throughout the space. And so you can take a look at some of the elements here that you have the ability to control. So I'll just make this a little bit bigger so that you can see, but you have the ability to control the glow, the flip, the exposure, a lot of different elements here that can really be the artistic mission for you inside of your project. So now that we've covered a little bit of that, I'm going to now talk a little bit about where the content that you import lives. So as I mentioned, the outliner here has everything that's inside of your viewport. Now, when you're working on projects, you might want to bring in a bunch of entourage, a bunch of people and trees and materials that you can drag and drop into the scene. And so those are all stored in the content drawer. So this content drawer by default is down at the bottom and it pops up when you select on it. But once you start working again, it kind of minimizes back down. So as a developer inside of Unreal Engine, I actually like to dock this. So you could select dock and layout. And this way, it is always down here at the bottom. Now you'll see that we do have some materials already in here. So I have some filters set up. This can be found inside of this little hamburger menu here where you can select it and you have the ability to select different elements that you want to see inside of that content drawer. For now, I'll go ahead and reset that just so we can all have the same screen up at the same time. So within this, we have our content folder is where everything's going to live. So as I mentioned, it's like opening up Unreal Engine for the first time. It's doing a lot of work, organizing a lot of the folders, content, sending the scene for you. So this is essentially what it has set up. And something that's nice is that in this ArchVision project, we do have a few things already set up that we can look at. You could take some time to explore some of this. So here we have our building, our geometry materials. So if I wanted to bring something into this, I could always right click, select a new folder. I could name this imports. And then now I have an organization process for where to import those objects. So to kind of go back to something that we talked about earlier in the demo is if I wanted to, I could then import something using this get content button. I could go to import content. And then now I have my imports folder where I can start to bring my elements in. So the content browser is really where you can start to organize and add in different elements. And then once you have those in, then you can drag and drop them into the scene. So I won't dive too much into this, but one thing I do want to talk about that I talked about earlier is how to turn on that nanite aspect. So I have the object, this pavilion, selected inside of the scene. If you hit Control B on the keyboard, that's going to bring it up in the content browser. So here you'll see that I have all of these static meshes, which is essentially just the individual geometry. And they live here in this content browser. So if I wanted to edit this building so that it gets edited everywhere inside of the project, you can double click on this and you'll see that you have some options here. So if I zoom out of this, you'll see I have some material slots. I have some the nanite settings here. So here, you'll notice that we already have the nanite support turned on, but you can turn this off if you wanted to and hit apply changes. Now, as I mentioned, I like to work with the nanite on. So it doesn't give you visual elements right here, but know that it is working once you do hit this apply changes so that when I go back into Unreal Engine, it's going to have that triangulation into it. So there are a lot of different settings here. I'm not going to talk about a lot of these. Essentially, I just like to turn on the nanite. And then if I'm rendering and I see some tessellation issues, I can always come back into the set mesh and change that here. Now, for now, you do have the ability to edit it there. One additional place is if you right-click on your static mesh, you can then go up to nanite and enable it here, making it a little bit easier. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different tasks in Unreal Engine. So I'm just showing you a few of the ways that you can start to work with some of the elements inside of Unreal Engine. And then you can build upon some of that foundation of where you at least know where to look first up inside of Unreal Engine so that you can learn over time. So now I'm going to take a step back here and take a look at how we can further build out this project. So we've looked at the user interface. We've looked at some of the mechanics of how this all works inside of the content browser and an outliner. One thing that I want to start to do now is start to look at some of the tools that we can really start to personalize our project. So here, this did come in with water, a little bit of ground here, which is nice. But say we want to start to build out an environment here. So if you go up to the selection mode, and go down to the landscape, we're going to take a second to bring in some additional landscape for the exterior here. So I'm going to go ahead and select landscape, and you'll see that a green grid starts to pop up. So let me just make this window a little bit bigger so we can all take a look at it. And you'll see that this green grid has popped up. And on the left-hand side, this is going to allow us to edit this. So essentially, this is going to be our landscape. And so I want this to be bigger. I want this to be the in between the city and the kind of the context ground that they provided us. So I'm going to increase this to 16 by 16. I would say you don't want to go too crazy with this because, of course, as the bigger it gets, the more time consuming it can be for your project to work well. But here I have this bumped up to 16 by 16. You can select create here. And what this does is it pops down a grid here for your landscape. Now, the fun part of this is I can now start to sculpt this. So say I just want this to be some rolling hills. I'm using my mouse button. I'm using my right mouse button to kind of move throughout the scene. And then I'm going to use my left mouse button to start painting. So here I can start to increase create little hills here. And what this is using is it's using the sculpt tool at the top left-hand side. Now, there are so many different things that you can do here. So I'd encourage you to really explore these. So one nice thing that isn't in Twinnovation here that you can use inside of Unreal Engine is really start to take a look at how the landscape is being eroded. So we have, hydro, we have erosion, you can retopo elements here. So there are a lot of different options that you have for bringing this to life and, making it, maybe a little more realistic. So you'll see as I'm painting this on here, so let me just zoom in here. I'm zooming in by you can use your keyboard as well. So I have my scroll button pressed and I am hitting W on my keyboard. And I can start to paint here and you'll see, with shadows, we're getting a little more information here, a little more erosion going into the geometry. So this, you could start to really build this out. And especially as designers and as creators, you can really be playful and matching a certain type of topology if you want to. So here, you could spend a lot of time doing this, but you have some other settings here that I encourage you to check out. You also have the ability to paint it further and paint it, but I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. So I'll go back to my selection mode. And so this, it'll just be hilly in one area. So what I can do now is I'm going to select the landscape and go over to the right-hand side. And you'll see that you have all of these different settings. So one thing that I want to do is I just want to apply a material to it. So I'm going to select this none button and I'm going to just type in grass. So let's see if it has anything in here. Looks like we don't have any grass. Let's see if something else will work. I'll try brown. This might be one of those situations where you need to import something, but just really just see if there was something in here I can use. So looks like there isn't a material that I want to use from this. So one thing that we can do is we can bring in a material. So one of the nice things that is included inside of the Epic Games tools is Pixel, which is a tool that is using photogrammetry to go in and scan the world and bring those elements inside of Unreal Engine and Twinmotion. So right now there is a tool called Pixel Bridge, that I can open by going to Window, Pixel Bridge, and it's going to give me options for bringing in different elements. So something that is brand new within the Epic Games tool is Fab, which is a marketplace for a lot of these different tools. So you've heard me talk about motion, reality capture. There's many different tools within the Epic Games ecosystem, and Fab is going to be the home place for that. So this is super new, so I haven't explored a lot of it, but I want to make sure that you know about it in case it's something that is of interest to you. So if you go down to surfaces, the surfaces are going to be the materials that you can bring into Unreal Engine. Now you'll see that there are a couple of different elements here. You can bring in 3D assets. So if I was doing perhaps I wasn't making it like a grass greenery and I was making it a little more desert, you could see how many different elements I could start to populate the Unreal Engine's scene and using a lot of these assets. There are also decals here for anyone that is working on something, for instance, a metal, and that you want to really make sure that it looks real and like move into the more like photorealistic materials. You can start to really fine tune it with leakage and grunge and grain. So there are a lot of different options here that are going to allow you to take it to the next level. So I'll go ahead to go to surfaces, and I'm not sure if I'm signed in, but we'll try here. So I'll just go over to grass here, and I'm going to just kind of pick out, let's see, we'll pick out one of these classes. I'm not signed in. Let's see if I can get this quickly. Not, okay, so I don't have this. I won't do this right now then, but I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of some of these settings. Essentially what you'll do is once you're signed in, you'll be able to download it and input it into your project. And it's going to automatically jump into that content browser where we had that here. And there will be a Quixel folder where you'll be able to drag and drop it into the scene. But for now, maybe let's go ahead and just create a simple material. So we have some materials here. You'll see that in the content browser, if I wanted to create a new material, I could right click, go to material, and select material. So here I'm going to name this M_ground. Now you'll notice there is some nomenclature here that is happening. So you'll see that there is MI, I used M. So there are some standards that you can look up for Unreal Engine that are going to help you stay organized. So here I had M for material. You'll see that all of the rest of these are material instances. So essentially, those material instances allow you to create multiple iterations of material so that you are being really efficient when you're using materials. Now, this is a little more, might be a little more complex for just getting a material in and starting. But this is an option for you. So one thing you could do is just right click and select create material instance. And then this one I would name, MI grass. So this is an example of how you can start to work with the content browser. You can create your own materials, you can import materials. And so if I wanted to fine tune this a little bit more, I could double click on it. Now, these are parameters that you do set up. So this is something that it might be a little more complex if you wanted to build out your own material. So if I come over to this materials here, you'll see we have, base color. So anyone that is familiar with PBR materials, if you have different bitmaps or JPEGs that you want to bring in to represent a certain material, you can do that. You can also start to set up your own. So it just hits 3 on the keyboard. So this is going to bring me a 3-unit, color picker here. So this allows me to pick a color here. So I'm going to just pick a dark green. I'm going to drag and drop this to base color, save this. And for now, I'm just going to drag and drop this into the scene so we can take a look at it. So I actually might need it to be a skin material, so it may not work here, but here we go. Okay, so obviously, this isn't a real representation of grass, but if I was going to be the more non-photorealistic, then maybe this is all I need, and I could kind of go through this whole kind of tune aesthetic for our project if I wanted to. So you have the ability to bring in those Quixel materials. You can develop your own materials here. This is some of the workflow that I like to talk about a little bit is, how do you manage a lot of these things? There's so many different settings. So I want to kind of double down on the idea of some of those Unreal Engine standards. So sticking with the nomenclature, you'll start to notice them. And that's why I like to work with some of the projects that have already been set, because you can start to see how they name elements. So here, I'm just exploring the project and I'm taking a look at some of the stills. So this is going to be still images that are exporting. They're creating level sequences, so LS. So, explore the template projects. There's also a lot of projects that you can download from the Epic Games launcher that is going to allow you to dive in deeper and really see how projects get built. But with this, we have our landscape in. We have taken a look at how some of the elements work inside of the outliner and on in the viewport. And so I know we're running at time, so I want to go ahead and just open this up to questions. As I mentioned, we didn't get too far here, and I think the main part of my goal here was just to talk a little bit about some of the very basic stuff and just really feeling free for people to explore Unreal Engine and, perhaps not trying to dive in too much to build something up immediately, but just taking some time to explore and view how some of these templates are made so that you can ready to go. So I'm going to take a moment to look at the chat here and see if there are any questions. And if I don't see any questions, then I'm just going to keep on going for the next 10 minutes. And if any pop up, feel free, Kelsey, to holler at me. But while we are here and have a little bit more time, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other tools of how you can start to build out projects inside of Unreal Engine if you wanted to work directly inside of Unreal Engine. So that is going to be by using the modeling tools. So if I go over to selection mode, go over to modeling, you'll see that there are a lot of different options here. So one thing that can be helpful for architects is working with the 6-strode path. So essentially, if I come here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to start to draw. Let's say if this was an apartment unit or something, I could come in here, draw some walls. Okay, please don't judge me on my straightness of my lines here. But when you click to the end, you can then start to set the size of that. Now up here, I'm just having this be interactive, but if you knew that you were always working with, 4-inch walls or 6-inch walls, you can set that up on the left-hand side. So a lot of these here allow you to kind of fine-tune the modeling aspect of that. So now I am just going to kind of set up the height of this here. So this works well. I'll hit select as well. So once again, if you know that's a 10-foot ceiling, you could use that. I'll go ahead and hit complete. And then we have our little building here. Now I see a question from Chris about any best practices for importing a SketchUp model based on my experience. So yeah, if you didn't want to model inside of Unreal Engine and you are already working inside of SketchUp, I would first download that Datasmith plugin for SketchUp. So you'll see that we have the Revit and SketchUp Pro option here. This is going to give you a Datasmith toolbar inside of SketchUp. And let me see if we have time, I can do my best to pull it up here and show you. But essentially what I would do is I would use the Datasmith and let's stop. I got a couple of minutes that I can explore it. And so if you Chris yourself, if you're working with SketchUp at the same time and want to make changes inside of SketchUp and see it inside of Unreal Engine, then I would use that Datasmith directly plugin. That's going to allow you to synchronize your changes inside of Unreal Engine at the same time as you're making changes inside of SketchUp. So that is something that, as you are working, you might find that you like to work with both at the same time. If your computer can't handle it, then you can also always export it as a Datasmith file. So here, I think I have the Datasmith plugin. Oh yeah, this is it. So here, this is the user interface that pops up whenever you start to work with the Datasmith plugin. So you'll have, this is essentially a auto toggle. So a toggle button that will automatically sync between your project inside of Unreal Engine this right here is going to synchronize it for the first time, but you, of course, would need to set this up. So if you are someone who, modeled something or someone else on the team modeled something from SketchUp, you could select this and you could export this. So if I just go to my desktop and do SketchUp model here, then essentially I can go inside of Unreal Engine and start to import that. So I'll come here to the Get Content, go down to Datasmith, go to File Import, and I'll go over to my desktop. And here is my SketchUp model. I'll bring it into my imports folder. Hit OK. It will pop up with some options. I like to turn off lights because sometimes if I'm working with an architect's model, they may have hundreds of lights in there, and that can be really expensive inside of Unreal Engine. So I typically turn that off and do the lighting inside of Unreal Engine. So for now, I'll go ahead and select Import. And let's take a look. I haven't tested this out, so I don't know exactly what this looks like coming in, but let me, oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got a pavilion on top of a pavilion, but let me just move this over and we can take a look at it. So you'll see that I have my pavilion from SketchUp in here. And so if there were changes to this model, I have this as an independent Datasmith file here. So, one thing you can do is pre-import. So if I made changes inside of SketchUp, but kept the same name and then exported it, then I can just hit re-import here. You also have the ability to do this direct link auto re-import. So that's going to be a little bit of a different setup. That will be coming out here using this direct link import. You'll see that it's already seeing the one I have open. So I can hit select. I'll do imports again, same settings. And then we have, this time, I'll just move this one over. So now we have this pavilion in here. So if I have SketchUp open and say we want to delete that box, I can hit synchronize. And then when I come over here, that box, well, I guess you can't see the box, but the box is gone. So let me just pull it up so we can take a look at it here. So there is no box here on the ground. So I'll do that one more time just to kind of showcase what that looks like one more time. So if I wanted to get rid of this pedestal or this object here, I can delete it, synchronize, and then it will synchronize here. So this is a really way for making sure that you're being super efficient with your modeling and working inside of Unreal Engine. So yeah, Chris, hopefully that helps. Yeah, let's see. Are there any other questions? I know we didn't get too far, but this is mostly just wanting to talk about some of the mechanics and how things work inside of Unreal Engine. And there are very many videos. I know that Kelsey shared one of the videos that I did a little bit earlier that talks a little bit about maybe some more fun features inside of Unreal Engine and how to work with that as well. So yeah, with that, I know we have a minute left. I don't see any other questions. So if you do have questions that pop up, we are here to help. So we have this email that you can write to, and we will be happy to address anything that we can. And yeah, I am so excited whenever I work inside of Unreal Engine, and I think it's very empowering for creators to be able to really build out their vision. So I hope that exploring sort of very basic steps here will help you feel a little more comfortable when you do start to dive in. So with that, we'll say thank you for joining. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to spend an hour with us, learning a little bit more about fundamentals of Unreal Engine. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And this will be recorded and put on YouTube in case you want to revisit some of the mouse elements that I talked about or some of the viewport tips that I talked about. They'll be available for you. So with that, we'll say farewell. Thank you.